Hello, this is Sean Harwell. You were listening to the Never Heard of It podcast.
And I'm Craig Moorhead, and this is the podcast where we talk about the movies that have fallen through our cracks.
And we're joined today by a very special guest by the name of Bob Hardison. Bob is a writer slash actor slash filmmaker slash. You may know him from the indie comedy from, was it 2014? Thank you. Called Angry White Man, directed by Brian O'Connell. Stars Bob in the lead role, the title role. Along with him, he's got some very funny people by the names of Matt Berry. We got Steve Agee in there.
Berry, yeah.
Scoot McNairy. I think that was one of the early things that I saw Scoot in.
Right.
Who else have we got in there?
Mary Birdsong.
Yes, great Mary Birdsong.
Genevieve Jones. And I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Matt Warzel.
And now, where can people go see Angry White Man if they want to stop this right now and go watch that movie?
You can get it on Amazon. You can order a DVD off of Amazon or Netflix, Hulu. We're in several places. I don't think we're doing Netflix Instant. But last I checked, even Walmart.com.
Really?
Some of those places, yeah.
You're in Wally World. That's awesome.
I am.
Seeing those sweet Wally World residuals.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. Craig, how are you doing today?
Man, I am doing so good. It's kind of a lie,
that's
but
good.
I'm doing fine. I'm doing all right.
Okay, that's good.
I'm excited to talk about this movie and to talk with Bob about stuff.
Yeah, we've known Bob for a while now. He went to our film school, North Carolina School of the Arts as well. We've talked to some other people from there. And, you know, sort of what we do when we have a guest, we kind of would like to just sort of get a picture of you, Bob,
Okay.
as a film fan. Because I think, you know, to get to the point where you are, certainly you either had to have the acting bug, the filmmaking bug, or maybe in your case, both, or the writing bug. Is there a movie, a moment from your youth that you sort of knew, okay, wait a second, this is a job that people do, this is a career, and if specifically there's a movie that was like, oh, that's the thing, like that's what I want to do. Is there a moment where that happened for you?
Possibly.
It's all a haze, right?
The first movie I went to see was Superman.
Nice.
I was 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My mom always would tell the story about how I guess, announced to the whole theater that my brother was eating all my popcorn during the movie. But I guess I was 3. It was just something that kind of stuck with me. When other kids were still playing with GoBots and Transformers, I guess I was like in 3rd grade. And
Yeah.
I asked for a VCR for Christmas.
Nice.
So, and that was like back in the day where every movie was in at the video store. So you would just go in and get whatever you wanted. But when I was growing up, my dad was the headmaster of the school I went to.
Cool.
And that was kindergarten through 12th grade. Small school, about 300 kids total. And there was this kid that we used to give a ride to school and from school. His name was Arthur. And when Arthur got his license, he drove us because my dad would have to stay after school.
Right.
For teachers' meetings, things like that. But when Arthur got his driver's license, he would drive us back to his house, and my dad would pick me up on the way home, or my mom would come and pick my brother and I up from his house. And Arthur was a huge heavy metal fan.
I like him already.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a huge horror fan.
Bonus points.
Okay. And I don't even know if I'm making this up in my head.
We'll get Arthur on the phone to confirm. Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm making this up in my head, but I remember it because I think Friday the 13th Part 5 came out in 1985, so that would have made me 10. He had like the fucking book for Final Chapter. I mean, they had like a Friday the 13th book.
Was it like a
like a novel, like a little novel based on the movie?
Wow, okay.
And you would flip through it, and you would see, and they would have pictures in there. Mm-hmm. You know, you just flip through it, and it's like, oh, here's a bitch with a pitchfork through her neck. You know, I'm 8 years old, 9 years old. Anyway, so Arthur, we go to his house, and he had made. I remember he was so excited that Part 5 was coming out.
He was like the only person.
Yeah, I remember being in his room. And he had made a deck-to-deck copy of every murder from the first 4 Friday the 13th films. And we watched it.
Yeah.
And I remember there was the 3D one. There was Jason shot some chick with a crossbow through her eye socket. There was a kid that was like a gymnast that was walking around on his hands, and Jason cut him in half.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Anyway, a ton of that stuff. So I think that was sort of my allure when I sort of got into watching horror and some of these other darker films. I knew I wasn't supposed to be watching that stuff.
Yeah, that was a big
deal. And I think
with it.
that's like the element that I still enjoy. I feel like I'm looking at something that I'm not supposed to be looking at. So,
well, that explains why you went and saw the Brian De Palma documentary with me.
Yes.
Because that's his
we
territory
did.
for
We
sure.
saw the De Palma documentary together. And not to get too off track here, but I thought the most interesting thing he brought up, sort of how indifferent he was after going through the whole process for the last 30 years or whatever, making films in the studio system. That realizing, though, that the politics and everything else, all of the moving parts that you cannot control, that it's inevitable that you're going to make some bad movies.
Yeah.
And he just acted like, this was a bad movie, but stuff like that happens. I mean, sometimes the stars line up and sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, because I think as an independent filmmaker, sometimes you have certain expectations, and I think you have to have some realistic expectations. And I just thought that was sort of interesting for him to. He even said, I think if you work as a filmmaker, if you get 3 great endings, for your whole career, then that's fucking great.
Well, let's talk about that then. That's an interesting segue, perhaps, to go from your love of horror and thrillers to film school and then coming out and making an independent comedy. I mean, can you talk about like the genesis of Angry White Man? Did you sit down with that idea to write it for yourself to perform in? And B, were you writing it as something that would be made by you in some capacity as like an independent film?
Actually, when I came out of film school, moved out to LA, I was working with Rich Robinson, who also went to film school for a while. We actually did a independent thriller horror film called Marcus. I think we shot that at the end of 2005. Scoop McNairy was in that. Jade Dornfeld, Samantha Shelton, Ross Rodriguez, who was one of our friends, and Mark Rose. It's been a while. Frankie Ingracia, who was in Election.
And what was the budget? Like, what kind of scope of movie is Marcus?
We shot it for about $25,000, and then I think we finished it for maybe twice that. We were approached by Polychrome Pictures, who was a subsidiary. Maybe you guys can edit my
no
subsidiary of Warner Brothers Home Video. So we went with them. It was a nightmare in terms of trying to get. We were offered some money up front. They didn't want to pay us. We took them to court, or threatened to take them to court. But what are you going to do? You're going to sue Warner Brothers. So by the time the lawyers got paid, paychecks or whatever I sent out from that were really small.
So did they actually distribute the film or no?
They did.
Okay,
yes.
they just didn't pay you.
Yeah, they didn't want to pay us. And then I think Polychrome went belly up.
Which happens,
Which happens as well. So it was difficult. And the reason I'm talking about this is to try to get
the mindset of Angry White Man.
To Angry White Man. I think after Marcus, we played a few festivals. We actually won a couple festivals.
Nice.
I remember, I think we won like $1,000 from some place in Mississippi, maybe Tupelo or somewhere. It was really odd.
Yeah. Tupelo's handing out the cash, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
And
good to know.
So anyway, I always know horror is very sellable. So I kind of went that route with the first thing we wanted to do. And then the next thing we were trying to do was another horror, and it just never quite got any traction. So I was down in Wilmington, of course, Brian Mandel, who shot, Foot Fist Way, and kind of seeing what those guys had been able to do with Foot Fist. I thought maybe I would try to do a comedy.
Had you written a comedy before?
I had written some stuff. I got jokes. I'm writing a piece right now. Like, one of the central themes is pedophilia. Craig, you still with us?
Always fun. Yeah, I just perked up just now. Pedophilia. Keep going.
Yeah. And I think when you're working with some of this stuff, sometimes you just feel like you need a laugh.
Yeah.
And actually from shooting the film and working on the film, I don't know if there's a more fun genre to be a part of in terms of a crew. Mm-hmm. I seriously doubt there's people out there that didn't have anything short of a blast on that film, regardless of what happened with it post-production. I wrote it originally, I was going to direct it.
Right.
We started stacking our cast. We were able to go out. I was able to get Scoot. I had recently moved out of my apartment. Didn't have a place to live, so I was crashing with Mandel. And we were watching the IT Crowd. Mm-hmm. And we saw Matt Berry in that, and he was incredible. So we decided to try to cast him as the villain. He loved the script, wanted to do it. He put us in touch with Steve Agee, and then Steve Agee was friends with Mary Birdsong.
Right.
And I was friends with Scoot, and I sent Scoot, but we didn't have anybody really pegged for the lead at the time, and some of them thought, Scoot included, that I would make a good Skeeter, and I think we just decided that was the way we were going to go. So I called up O'Connell, and I knew his background with improv comedy, and anyway, that's kind of the way we went, and I think it turned out well. I think it's difficult for comedies.
So difficult.
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
So, I think we were a little disappointed in the amount of play that we were able to get, but we've been able to do okay in the DVD market.
It's great.
So, been a big part of 2 films, but I've gone from idea to script to screen to distribution, and that's sort of a crash course that you can't replicate.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, and it was weird. I was listening to you guys' podcast with Damien, who's a good friend of mine as well, but he was talking about expectations for yourself as an independent filmmaker or whatever, an independent film, and you have to be able to give yourself that hey, I've been a big part of 2 films that we finished and we got distribution for, so you have to allow yourself some degree of success for that, although it hasn't put me where I want to be at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's important too, because I think there's maybe a this perception that a lot of independent films do put people where they want to be. And I would say the numbers are against that idea.
Sure.
It's the really very few that actually break out of that. And so, I think, the sense of accomplishment to take away from it is just going through that experience of learning and finding the value in that. I'm curious had you acted prior to that?
No, I had not.
So what was that like?
That was
it
pretty
terrifying?
wild. I think I had 2 lines in All the Real Girls for David.
Okay,
film.
right.
And I had 2 lines that I got my ass beat.
Yeah.
So that was the extent of the acting that I did. I do remember that day on set. It was really funny. It was fun.
Yeah.
Of course, I was like a PA driver.
Sure.
I wrecked that 15 passenger event. I told them, I said, hey, I can't drive this big son of a bitch. I'm going to have an accident. I had at least 3 fender benders.
Oh, no.
One of them was right in front of the production office. I hit, I think it was maybe a Honda. When I was backing up, I was like, oh, shit, I just hit that Honda. And I went inside to get something or whatever. And Chris Balcom was working in the production office, and I thought it was kind of funny that I hit this car, and I wanted to tell somebody about it to share the humor. And I said, hey, Balcom, I just backed in and knocked the shit out of that Honda out there. And he was like, Bob, that's my fucking car. Anyway.
Lesson learned, yeah.
Yeah, so I just remember going to set, though, and it was such a sort of strange thing to first experience acting, and especially, obviously, Angry White Man was a smaller shoot than All the Real Girls was, but it was just really odd. I had 1 line or 2 lines, and everybody's running around. There's a lot of noise, and people are getting ready, and then all of a sudden
everybody's looking at you.
Fucking quiet as hell, and somebody sticks the sticks in front of you, and here we go. But it was definitely, because in Angry White Man, I think it was maybe 2 scenes or something that I wasn't in. But it was it was just an invaluable experience, because now I know what those people, they go through.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. The other people that I was acting with were really good. And they knew that I hadn't acted. I'm sure it didn't take them long to figure it out. But it was a lot of fun. And I think just like with anything, you sort of learn what's enough, what's not enough, what's too much. I mean, you think, so if I ever get the opportunity to maybe play another character, I don't think I would like to play another lead. I think that was a little much for first time out. And especially, I think you focus so much on just trying to be believable and natural and try to be the thing that grounds each scene. You don't have as much fun as playing maybe a supporting character where you can,
that pressure.
Let it swing for the fence a little more.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I really did have a blast. And
cool. And did you have any sort of script changes happening during the shoot? I mean, were you pulling any double duty as a writer on set? That happens.
I think that's probably the most frustrating thing about being an independent filmmaker is you can't come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think there's this balance where you have to try to find where, hey, this is something we have to get, or this is something that we don't need. In the heat of the moment, I think what happens a lot of times is stuff gets cut, and then by the time you get to the editing room, you have sort of the basic pieces and maybe have lost some of the nuance that you had originally envisioned.
Right.
And that's just something that everybody has to deal with. But I enjoy that part of it too, because the sort of the problem solving part of it as well. And you just try to keep a level head.
How did Brian guide you through that in terms of, Brian's one of the funnier people I know. Like, what is his feedback to you?
I thought O'Connell was really good and sort of brutally honest with me when he needed to be, and say, hey, this joke didn't work, or we need a little more, a little less, or whatever. I thought, because he's big sort of on improv, and we improv a decent amount on there, but he was just kind of a vote of confidence that was there, that maybe since it was my first, I mean, you don't need somebody up there kissing your butt, but you do. Yeah. It was nice to but it was nice to have to say, hey, good job, or
right.
Or you hear Matt Berry's like, great work.
Nice. that definitely will make you feel good. Yeah, and Brian has since gone on to direct sort of indie horror comedy Bloodsucking Bastards, which came out last year, and met some acclaim.
I would like to think that Angry White Man helped him get that job. I hope it did.
Well, I'm sure it helped inform his decisions while he was on set. It's all sort of experience building to that next thing.
Sure.
Well, that's very cool. Today's movie, and I'm gonna go ahead and be the target for this because I picked it. I thought it might be interesting when we were talking about what to watch this week. I thought, well, hey, Bob's a writer and he acted in this movie. What other actors have written a movie that they've been a part of? And it's a pretty small pool there. It seemed like the compass was pointing me towards James Franco. And so today we're going to talk about a movie that James Franco directed and adapted called Child of God from 2013. It is an adaptation of a Cormac McCarthy novel. And I'll just read the synopsis from IMDb. It is: a dispossessed, violent man's life is a disastrous attempt to exist outside the social order. Successively deprived of parents and homes, and with few other ties, Ballard descends to the level of a cave dweller as he falls deeper into crime and degradation.
That's about right.
That's a lot. That's about right.
Yeah, I agree.
It stars Scott Hayes, Tim Blake Nelson. James Franco has a very small part. This movie is on Netflix. You can check it out. And I would just like to say up front, I did not know that there was a necrophilia element, so I apologize, gentlemen.
Why are you apologizing? I told you I like darker stuff. I mean,
Well, this is pretty dark then, yeah.
Yeah. I was, where there was necrophilia.
Yeah.
There was a shit in the
Shitting.
woods.
There was an on-camera shit in the woods.
On-camera shit like that. the thing about the on-camera shit, I was a little disturbed by. It was usually, I would hope that they would give some sort of warning. He's dropping his pants and squatting down. It was just a hard cut to shit coming out of a man's ass. And then he wipes his ass with a stick.
Oh.
Yeah, not very thoroughly, and then pulls his pants back up.
It took me a little by surprise. Like my fiance had gone to bed last night, and I was sitting out there watching this.
I gotta wake her up.
So I woke her up. We rewound it, watched it together. No, but it was when you talk about the necrophilia, you talk about the defecating scene along with some of the other scenes. I think obviously that was part of the point. It was to be aggressive. I personally like it when filmmakers aren't afraid to go places, and if I'm fortunate enough to make a lot more movies, which I hope I am, if one of the criticisms is, you just go too far, you went too far, whatever, like, I can live with that.
Yeah.
But I just think here it's a bit clunky, a little more abrasive maybe than Franco had intended.
Right. Craig, I want to ask you, and I think we should talk about this and not necessarily shy away from it.
Is Bob a good guest?
Is Bob a good guest?
Well, I've been thinking about that.
How's he doing so
for the
far?
last half an hour. And I think... No, I'm sorry.
No, I think you and I both, and maybe Bob to a degree, when I realized, hey, wait a second, this movie is on Netflix. James Franco made this. Maybe there was some trepidation about watching it.
Let's examine that, yeah. I like James Franco. I've liked him for a while. There's stuff that he's done that I don't like, but it's not stuff that makes me dislike him.
Right.
He's well known for going to thousands of universities and teaching at all of them simultaneously. Publishing, I believe, poetry and books and making films. He's doing a lot of things. He's spinning a lot of plates. I mean, so what was the trepidation about watching this? I think for me it was, am I just in for like an hour and a half of nonsense? Like, is it just like, I'm gonna blow my art wad all over Netflix for you, and it's like I'm gonna be staring at clouds and trees the whole time. Like I'm just not. I can't do that. So in that sense, I was very much pleasantly surprised by A Child of God.
Okay.
I mean, it's a Cormac McCarthy story, and I don't know how much is owed to Cormac that it worked as well as it did for me. It was definitely an unpleasant thing to watch in general. But at the same time, much like Bob is saying, just as far as like not being afraid to go all the way, here's this intimate portrait. I mean, you are just like with this guy the entire time who is lacking in so many things.
Toilet paper, for example.
Yeah. Again, it's a very intimate movie. You're with this guy who is off his rocker. He's had a horrible life. Who knows what else is going on with this guy? He's trying to figure out how to survive in the woods. Somehow, nothing ever felt so overplayed to me that it sort of took me out of that. As shocking as some of it is, it all sort of made sense. And as a story, as a character study, I kind of was like, that was pretty good.
I would agree with that, and I think, for me, the only thing that kind of took me out was just things like, the music occasionally, or the tone of the voiceover, or just some of the camera work a little bit at times.
Like, I hate banjo, bluegrass music in Southern films.
Thank you for saying that.
I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
I remember watching the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Kevin Costner thing?
Yes.
I didn't see that. I really want to.
Because it's always, we're in the South now.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just gets so old.
I had a problem with that as well. And, for me, it was the main thing was I totally did that in one of my student films.
Yeah, there you go.
But it was mainly because, that one of the actors, he played the banjo and he had a bluegrass band. It's thank you. Yes,
right.
Please. But it did not, for me, it was such an, you go watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Yeah. There is Americana music and Southern music that tonally fits those scenes. In this, you're basically...
It just feels like a cliche.
Yeah, you're opening with a guy who's crazy in a barn coming out with a rifle to get these people away from this property as they're trying to auction it. And like, he's threatened to kill them. And like, I believe that he might actually do that.
Right.
And behind that, you've got sort of upbeat banjo bluegrass music. And what was interesting was I only noticed it in, I think the movie's divided into 3 sections. I only noticed it in that first section. And then later on there's...
I think they got rid of it.
And there's like really good contemplative music later on.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
For some reason, that bothered me right up front. Go ahead, Craig.
Although I will say, and I don't think it was banjo, so maybe it still goes with what you're saying, but one of the more striking parts to me was when he was making love to the first corpse.
Yes. That was pretty striking.
There was a very tender acoustic song playing under it. A very romantic, like, isn't this nice? And you're just like, Jesus. Like, I mean, it's this entire thing where he's on a date with this girl and pretending that she's coming on to him, and it's just this tender, beautiful music behind it. It's just like, we're in his head, you know what I mean? Like, we're in his head, and you're in this room, and you can't leave.
That music cue didn't bother me. And, like, personally, I kind of like this. I'm with you, Craig, a little bit. Like, as fucked up as it all sounds, I kind of liked the story,
right,
on a basic level.
Mm-hmm.
I just think in some areas I would have liked to have seen a little more restraint. I think with the necrophilia sort of scene where he found these bodies, which could have used some of that. Maybe he's going to do this, but it's not going to be as brutal. It's not going to be what we think it's going to be.
Right.
Also, too, because I wanted to research this so you guys wouldn't be afraid to ask me to come back since I do live right around the corner. I looked on IMDb. You know, he comes up on this car where these 2 dead people.
Engine is running.
The engine was running.
Yeah.
So I kind of made the leap that carbon monoxide was what I originally thought.
Yeah.
Apparently in the book, these people had backed into somewhere and it was a really snowy area and the snow had covered up the tailpipe.
Right.
So
I thought that was a very sort of a pretty big loose end.
Yes.
That probably didn't need to be. I mean, it was like, okay, well, did these people die? Did somebody else murder them and put them here? But I just, like I said, I think it was just the abrasive sort of nature of it. I mean, he left. How many times does he walk away from that fucking car?
Yeah. Many times. He comes back.
Shit, I forgot. There's a dead woman back there. I can take her panties off and smell them. And then he walks away again. And
he forgot the quail that he shot that was on top of the car. Right. So he goes back and gets that. And then he remembers,
I can go have sex with this woman, this dead woman. Like I said, maybe just a touch less batshit crazy and a touch more of like innocence in that sort of thing. Well,
that's a question actually I wanted to ask you guys is when you have a protagonist who is very obviously mentally afflicted,
right?
And all we're sort of given is that his father killed himself, and after that point, he sort of disintegrated into the state that he is in now, which is basically living in a barn and like a lean-to of sorts, and stealing and eating when he can, and that kind of thing. I'm kind of with you in the sense that like there were moments where I'm like, I don't know, like some of the basic like machinations of human behavior are missing here.
Right.
And yet you sort of have a card to get away with that if you have a protagonist who is crazy. And so
how do you make that palatable for
right.
people?
And so I wondered, if you guys struggled with that a little bit, or what do you think? I was trying to think of, is there an example of another movie that has a character like that in a similarly prominent role that does it completely differently? I mean, the only thing I could kind of come up with was Sling Blade a little bit.
Right. Did you ever see the Woodsman with Kevin Bacon?
No.
Where he plays, I don't know why I keep bringing up pedophilia on your fucking podcast.
Well.
Oh, shit.
You're already here. You might as well.
I know, right? I can't go back to jail. No, he plays a pedophile in that. To see him try to control himself is excruciating.
Yeah.
And you feel awful, but you feel bad for him. And I think again, I don't know, because the material is the material. I mean, I think he took that story from Cormac and made it into a script. I mean, I would be very surprised
to the point where there's text on the screen, and then there's a bit of just straight narration. I mean, it's not even voiceover really, because it's from an unknown party.
So it's easy to say, hey, I would like this to have been a little more palatable, but I mean, what exactly, like you said, what does that entail? I mean, does that mean that you don't show certain things?
Did you guys ever sympathize for Lester Ballard?
I did.
Well, see,
what about you, Craig?
See, I did, and that's
I had moments
that's kind of
where I did,
what.
yeah.
And when we're talking about other movies, it kind of reminds me of how I felt during the movie Happiness.
Okay.
Which was a real hoot too.
Yeah.
You were you were there for that screen. Were you? In school?
Yes. Yeah.
That was amazing.
Wow.
I remember just curling into the fetal position at the end.
Yeah.
And
ejaculating.
But it's yeah, of course. But it's similar in that again you have a pedophile in that movie who you're watching them struggle.
I know.
With this pedophilia, and you can't help but on some level understand the struggle part, even though you don't understand the pedophilia part. But again, with Lester, like where I came in to sympathize with him, oddly enough, was during his time with the corpse, the first one, the one who really loved him.
The girl he dragged from the car, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because all I could think was, okay, here's a guy whose life has just been beyond shit. To a point, it's hard to even fathom what his life has been. His mom left, his dad killed himself, and he just sat there and saw his dad hanging, I guess, in a barn. And before that, he was being abused, and now he's got nobody. Everybody wants him to stay away from him. He's not that, bright, obviously. He doesn't have a shot with a normal human relationship. He's living in the fucking woods, shitting on sticks, and it's just like there's that part of me. It's just like, fuck, like this is as happy as he's gonna get. It's just like, god damn, like I couldn't help but feel sad, and then awful. And then one of my notes here was, thank God that house is burning down and she's inside it, because I thought that was the end of our necrophilia. Of course, I was wrong.
Yeah, when the barn goes up in flames and the girl's body is inside, his pain is real. Like, especially the way Scott Hayes plays that. I was like, Jesus, yeah, he's really suffering a loss here. But the important distinction, I think, is that he didn't kill that girl. And Jesus Christ, we're just
I know.
I'm splitting hairs
degrees.
It's okay.
Necrophilia.
If you're not the one that kills her, it's okay to fuck.
Well, I do wonder if that played into that feeling a little bit, because later then, there's like 3 instances in this movie basically where he comes upon cars where people were having sex, basically.
Right.
It's almost like he's a peeping Tom as a pastime.
The first time he does it, he just jerks off.
Yes.
Okay, but that wasn't the same car with the same people.
No, those weren't the same people. Yeah, at least to my knowledge.
No, I didn't think it was.
Yeah, but the third time, he kills both the man and the woman, and then he does have sex with that woman too, right?
I assume so.
I blocked it from memory.
The one he shot her,
or he just scalped her.
Yeah,
he scalped her.
He scalped her.
Right, but we didn't see him have sex with her.
But yeah, but I think my bigger point I was trying to get at was like, there's a transition from that sort of sense of just pure isolation, loneliness, terrible, terrible life, to a guy then committing murder and scalping a woman, dressing up in the woman's clothes, putting that scalp on his head, and going out to shoot the man that's trying to auction off the property. Where it kind of felt like Psycho a little bit, like when it turned into that. Sure. And I'm guessing, Craig, you lost your sympathy for that guy in that last half, or no? I mean, the movie ends in a really interesting place after he's been, arrested and chased. He's basically supposed to be leading them to the bodies in a cave, and he flees away from these men. And, it ends with him breaking through the ground again and coming up onto land and basically escaping to freedom.
Yeah.
And so by that point, I just was like, Jesus Christ, Lester the Molester wins, and my sympathy was gone for him, which is an interesting transition to the last half of a movie. Because usually you're taking that bad seed, and most movies, by the end of it, want you to like him and root for him. Here, it seemed like it flipped that.
I think it did, and I do feel that same way. I mean, there's no way by the end that I can actually want him to get away with it. In fact, when I thought it was going to be sort of the mob justice thing, I was like, oh, well, that's nice. Like, at least, you know, like these guys seem like, okay, well, we're going to kill you, but we're going to do it quick or something. You know, like I kind of felt like that was the vibe for a second.
Right.
And I was like, well, at least that's fine. But no, I definitely don't have that much sympathy. I certainly don't want him to kill the guy who owns the land. Like, the thing about Lester is, you know, he's human on that level when you see him privately, where you're like, oh yeah, like I can kind of understand, you know, what this guy's going through. But he's also obnoxious as shit.
Yeah.
Like anytime, like you would not want to deal with that guy for 1 minute of your day.
Did you guys have a town loon where you grew up?
You know, I don't know if we did.
We did.
Huh.
You guys did? I know there was
man.
one like in the town next over. I think his name was Bonner. He like rode a bike with one of the big flags on the back. You know.
We had Willard Blevins. May he rest in peace. I suppose also a pedophile.
He
I
is
believe.
immortal. Yeah.
But he would stand at basically the main intersection in town, dressed up as Batman or Freddy Krueger. He did Superman every now. Would wear wigs. He had a huge iguana that he would take with him. Yeah, just
he would dress up as Superman with a fucking iguana standing there.
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
It is kind of amazing until you found out.
Are you sure he's a loon? I mean, he might. That sounds
he had some problems for sure. And
see, I've got sympathy for him.
Well, he did go to jail for pedophilia, I believe, or kitty porn.
Yeah,
so we can't get away from this. I thought of that watching this movie because there are moments where, I mean, yeah, you're telling me like he is annoying, like he's a nuisance. And that's established from the very first scene. I just kept wondering, wouldn't everybody know who he is? Like, he seems to surprise people.
Yeah.
Like, even in the couples in the car, the two-time... Well, yeah, the two times. Wouldn't they know who he was and sense the danger? Well. And then he goes to there's a store where he buys the underwear and the clothes, the dress.
I mean, is it cool that you just walk into a store with a fucking rifle? Like,
I mean, and that girl was like charmed by him. I know. And I'm just like, no, she would have heard of him.
Well, but what is that, like 50s Tennessee? Like, maybe.
Maybe.
Well, I think the book is set in the 60s, and that's another issue I had. I couldn't quite make out. I mean, I originally thought this was like the 20s or something.
Right.
Yeah, and then like they're using, you know, different kind of phones, and I don't know. I give that kind of a pass just because of obviously this was low budget. And like,
as far as sympathy for me, I mean, I certainly had it in the very beginning when this whole sort of you're selling my land, and then I think, you know, you just expected when he went up to this car and there was these dead people in the back. That he was going to get something pinned on him that he didn't fucking get.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
And sometimes you come to a crossroad, you're like, okay, well, the audience is going to expect me to do this.
Right.
So I want to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's right, but sometimes just because it's different doesn't mean that it's better than what the audience would have thought you would have done.
Right.
You know, I thought he was going to get in there and kind of be like, holy shit, these people are dead. Of course, he felt up the woman.
Right. And then he leaves.
And I thought that would have been enough. I was like, you know,
he's like, okay, I give him that. Right.
Yeah. He's groping this dead woman's tit and her
grab.
nipple.
You know, okay.
And, you know, I'll give him that. I'm willing to give him that because then that would put his fingerprints, things like that, and I'm just like, okay, this is how he's gonna sort of get screwed up.
Right. It's in line with what we've seen of him prior to.
But
and then
when
he goes beyond that.
Goes to the next level, and see, I think if you would have done that, if he hadn't had sex with that woman in the car, if he would have just taken her back with him, I would have still been with him.
Okay, I think. Interesting. Yeah,
I think in some ways, I feel like the end could have been the fact that his house burning down with the woman he loved in his house could have been something, a different vibe. I kind of checked out the second murder, but I did enjoy the fact that he got away. I wish more films had the guts to let the bad guy get away.
Sure.
And then, not that they have to do it all the time. You get frustrated, like, so, you know, sometimes, I mean, you know.
Yeah. I did kind of like the ending of this movie. I mean, there was something sort of
especially in breaking out of a cave.
It was
new ground. Was
pretty
cool.
It was like the most cinematic thing. It's like coming up in the cow pasture with turds.
Speaking of cinematic stuff, like I really enjoyed sort of the traveling sequences when I sort of got a sense of where I was. The Tim Blake Nelson sheriff character, when they were in the car and they're sort of going around the countryside, you have that traveling sort of tracking shot on the road. I really thought that was some of the better set pieces, so to speak.
I thought it was kind of nice too, just to see the South portrayed in winter, with all the leaves off the trees. Like, you just don't get that much. And
no, it's so sweaty.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like,
I know. Well, and they always shoot in like Atlanta or somewhere or Louisiana where it's flat.
It's a time to kill, and like I'm
every Grisham novelist.
My knees are sweaty.
To step back 1 second, just to get back to the fact that he got away at the end. One other thing I was thinking, and I'm not sure really how big a point it is, but so his mom quit on him, his dad killed himself, and yet this guy, and maybe it's just because he's just a dumb animal at this point. But this guy, like, never even considers killing himself. Like, he is absolutely always trying to survive. Like, he's not asking anybody for help. He doesn't beg those guys to let him go. It's interesting that is one thing at the end that you kind of admire about him in a way.
That element, I think, really works. And I was just telling Sean about this before we started this. There's a movie called The Tribe.
Yes.
About a deaf school. There's no dialogue.
No spoken
subtitles.
Dialogue, right? Sign language.
It's sign language, but they don't do subtitles, so you don't know what they're saying to each other.
Okay. I thought there was. Yeah.
And that was how I felt after watching that. I mean, the places that director goes is just. I mean, it's like Harmony Korine on steroids. And you felt a little of that in this film.
Yeah.
At least I did. I think there just wasn't maybe enough time to soak in that this isn't this guy's fault.
Well, there's so little, information about him given from any other character.
Right.
You spend, 90% of this movie is on this character and from his POV and with him at all times. On that note, maybe we should talk just a little bit about what did you think of Scott Hayes, the actor in this role? I mean, that's a really pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you wrap your head around this. I read that he went to Sevier County in Tennessee and basically
it said he
slept in caves and stuff for a while before they shot this. And I think they actually shot it in West Virginia or something. But anyway, I was pretty impressed by him. I mean, it is hard to be an annoying character for one thing. Like, I think that's hard to do. I mean, he's guttural and he grunts and he makes, all kinds of strange noises throughout. And then I've got the feeling maybe he was wearing some sort of teeth prosthetic of sorts, like a tooth extensions, maybe.
I thought he did I thought he did a good job. And again, it's, you can say, oh, well, I would have liked, and the word is always likable.
Yeah, I know. I hate that.
Well,
he's not a likable guy by any stretch of imagination.
No, and it's like, oh, well, he needs to be more likable and this and that. And I've always felt like that likable should be replaced with interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's characters throughout film history or whatever that you absolutely hate, but you're glued to them, watching them. And I just think it was what a monumental task for somebody. I felt like his best stuff was when, I'm assuming, they just let him go when he was in the woods walking around with his rifle.
Pooping? Yeah.
When he stuck the stick up his ass, I thought that was
really
great.
Believed it.
But I thought that was some of his best, because he felt a little loose cannon out there, but it felt a little more stilted, I think, in some scenes with other characters.
Yeah, and it was hard. There were times where he speaks with such a mumble, and it's clearly intentional that it's hard to understand him. I think that's the point. And I felt like there was a part of me that recognized that from society. Even just where we live in Asheville, you walk around downtown enough, you're going to see a guy that's just, you're going to run into somebody on the street that's just kind of mumbling incoherently.
Yeah.
And so again, that's a tough thing to place. Yeah. That's a tough thing to play, and it's a tough thing to place on your main character.
I used to do that when I was living in LA. If I had to walk somewhere I didn't feel comfortable late at night or whatever, Hollywood or whatever, just fucking talk to yourself, man.
That's the old Andy Kaufman trick. That's good.
People will leave you alone. How does Franco get all of these sort of literary...
I don't know. And there was a big uproar because they thought that there was like a couple hours where it was announced that he had the rights to Blood Meridian, which is the masterpiece of Cormac McCarthy.
I remember reading The Sound of Fury. I was in grade school.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, I don't want to make assumptions, but Franco may have the income to purchase the rights to these things, and you know, if you're an author and you're looking at this guy, you know, maybe it's worth a chance, especially with Child of God. I mean,
who's going to want to make that?
Who else is going to make that? And he got it made. And I think maybe, you know, if there's a big takeaway from this movie, it's Jesus Christ, he got this thing made, and that's amazing.
And that is, and that's been a little bit of a theme for our podcast tonight.
For sure.
I mean, you have to tip your cap to people that figure out a way to go out there and do it with so many moving pieces and so many pitfalls and so many obstacles, and you know, to go out there and just let it rip.
Right, and this is a movie that would not have lasted a second, even, I think, in the sort of mainstream independent sort of market. I mean, it's not even that. It's not like a Miramax movie. It's not Little Miss Sunshine. You know, it's like,
no, it's not.
It's way outside the realms of that.
That was one thing that I did like about it, was the fact, even though that I know who James Franco is, this movie felt like an independent film to me. It didn't feel like you said, a Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah, like a vanity project.
Look, man,
or anything
if
like
you've
that.
got Steve Carell, Toni Collette, Greg Kinnear, and fucking Alan Arkin in your movie, it's not an independent movie. But I did feel that, because I enjoyed that, because it does add a sense of realism to it when you haven't sort of seen. I mean, it's just, you know, that great sort of indie grit that you just can't get any other way.
Yeah. Yep. There's one other movie that Scott Hayes is in that's, I think, coming out that I wanted to mention. It's another one that Franco directed called Zeroville. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it seems like they started filming in 2014. It's based on the novel by Steve Erickson. It's got James Franco, Seth Rogen, Jackie Weaver, Megan Fox, Will Ferrell, Danny McBride. Horatio Sanz from SNL is playing...
Yeah, what happened to that guy?
Well, he's playing Francis Ford Coppola in this.
Holy shit.
And Scott Hayes is playing Charles Manson, which I can kind of see.
Yeah,
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Totally see that.
Dave Franco, James' brother, is playing Montgomery Clift. So clearly this is a Hollywood movie of sorts. I haven't heard anything else about it, but I would definitely be interested in checking that out, specifically to see Scott Hayes as Charles Manson.
Honestly, it looks, I mean, as soon as you said that.
Yeah, I know.
That's like the role he was born in.
Is it him and Steve Railsback?
I had read on there, though, that Franco had seen Hayes do a lot of acting.
Yeah, I think they went to school
Hollywood
together or some sort.
Theater scene or something like that.
There was one Playhouse troupe, I think, that they were both involved in. Yeah, I think he's been in a couple of Franco's movies. We'll kind of wrap this up here. I found a review of Child of God from an author named Scott Tafoya, who I think was writing for RogerEbert.com. I just wanted to read this last little thing here. Franco may just be the coolest kid in class trying to encourage everyone to pay attention to the English teacher, but there's something noble in that. The day he figures out what to do with his camera, he's going to graduate to artist, and we may have a properly excellent director on our hands. And I don't know, I read that and I was like, I think that's pretty valid.
I think that's really valid too. I think when you look at a lot of these directors, and if you read about them, a lot of them started out doing TV shows, or they got sort of, I guess my point is they had opportunities to make stuff and to just like with screenwriting, I probably have more scripts than you do that I just use to learn from that will never see the light of day. And then you got to think the same thing happens with a director as well, having the opportunity that they learn and get better as they go. And I think, unfortunately, without sort of the instant looking for the next big thing type of thing that we have going on, I think it's difficult for directors to get multiple chances if they don't hit with their first film.
Right.
Yep.
I think it's more difficult for them.
Well, and it's interesting with Franco too, because here's a guy who he doesn't have to succeed as a director. He doesn't need to. He can go make mainstream movies and make millions doing that. And then I think that's part of the sort of backlash against the idea that he is making movies. I mean, it's interesting that a guy would be faulted or criticized for just trying to do something different. Like, exactly. I mean, let's there's Franco again trying to make these little art house, writing a novel. Like, it's weird because specifically with comedic actors. I mean, I can tell you right now, anytime Seth Rogen or Will Ferrell puts out a movie, you go look at the YouTube comments. Oh, I hate this guy. I'm so tired of this shtick. Right. And then here's a guy like Franco. It's like, this guy. Who does he think he is?
No, it is. It's
you
ridiculous.
Can't win. Yeah,
it is, and it's like I said. I think it's unfortunate because you do. I mean, you tip your hat to the guy because he's out there. I mean, he's putting it out there, and and making a film is like walking around town naked. I mean, you're putting it out there, and
he's doing it with frequency, which that a lot of people just simply can't do that, and or won't do that. And, I mean, maybe the argument is, James, take 6 years, figure out the story, figure out exactly what it is, and then you'll make your masterpiece or something. But Woody Allen doesn't do that, so I don't know. Final thoughts on this: would you recommend it to a person who's sort of predisposed to, be open to a movie like this?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would recommend.
Yeah, I think so.
And again, I mean, we were talking before we started talking about this movie. We were talking about movies that influence you and stuff. I think it's interesting to watch different. I mean, you watch a movie like Badlands for the first time,
right?
Or Suspiria for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Just understanding that there's just different sort of points of view, and there's different ways to make a film, and there's different types of films out there. And I think and I kind of felt that way when I was watching this film. I mean, I was maybe not, as entertained as some other films, but you definitely sort of had that sense of I haven't really seen this.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. I haven't really seen this movie, so that's why I would recommend it.
Yeah, no, even to the extent of my only expectation going into this was knowing, the few books from Cormac McCarthy that I've read and the adaptations I've seen. It's rare that he paints a happy picture of the world.
No, yeah. Well, I knew it was good. Yeah, I figured it was going to be.
I did too. I did not anticipate the protagonist being someone that was that
off the reservation.
And so I think that was, if you know that going into it, maybe there's a whole different sort of experience you have. I don't know, Craig, what do you think about this thing?
I mean, again, man, I would definitely recommend it to the right person. I can think of a few people I could recommend this to. Again, I went into the movie thinking I was just going to be looking at dumb, open vistas of just blank shit. Like, I thought, God damn, this is going to be boring. Like, that's really just the way I was thinking. And that was not my experience at all. So I was very happy about that. Obviously it made me very uncomfortable. I had a very visceral reaction to it. And the fact that I actually thought some of the necrophilia was sweet makes me very disturbed.
Right?
Yeah. And so, I got to say, I mean, I have a very, very fond feeling about this movie. It certainly moved me in certain ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the point. I mean, were you talking about Cormac McCarthy? I was saying that I like filmmakers that aren't afraid to go there. I mean, he's definitely not afraid to go there. And look, you'll never forget this guy taking a shit or fucking a dead woman in the back of the car. Like, so those are images that are going to be burned in your head. And if you're going to miss, at least be memorable on one side of the road or the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sort of safe play for me that bothers me.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of where Franco finds that sort of film that really clicks with people. I can't help wonder what it would look like if he did direct a comedy. He definitely seems to have sort of literary pursuits and ambitions.
Yeah, and that's kind of strange too. That you would think that would be the logical sort of step for him to jump in and direct a Neighbors or something.
I'm so glad he's not though.
I know.
So
and he's
glad.
like, hey, no, I want to go out and make sort of these. And I agree, Craig. I thought when I saw that it was a Franco film and it was a McCarthy piece, I thought it was going to be a 2-hour meditation of some sort, and it certainly was not.
Have you seen anything else that he's directed, either of you?
No.
Did he direct True Story?
No.
Was he just an actor?
No, yeah, I think he was in that, right?
Okay. I really want to see As I Lay Dying just to see what Danny is.
Yeah, absolutely.
What he's doing in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, any of that Faulkner stuff, I think. He's tackling some
that is just crazy
novels
when
that
you really
do
see
not.
It's like James Franco just wants to go out and like make fucking Faulkner films.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the hardest novels you could possibly
adapt. I know,
yeah.
just incredible.
I mean, I'm looking at IMDb right now, and there's 36 credits listed to Franco as a director
Holy
already.
Shit.
Oh yeah.
And some of these are just announced, but
he's got like 20. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these are in post production. And I don't know what the real status of those as viable films or not. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if some of the backlash against the notion of him adapting Blood Meridian were mostly from people that have never seen any of his movies.
I'd bet I would bet that's true.
Yeah,
I would bet that's true too.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I wasn't guilty of like, oh no, he should not do that.
Well, also too, I think he probably catches a little more flack for the reasons we discussed in terms of him not, he hasn't quite broken through yet to a more mainstream audience. But I think anytime you have a beloved novel and it gets assigned a director, there's going to be a backlash. I mean,
yeah, it'll be curious to see if he ever manages to get that off the ground. He's actually shot some test footage of Blood Meridian with Scott Glenn. You can find that online. It's out there.
Oh, Scott Glenn?
Yeah, he's in there, and a couple. I bet Scott Hayes is probably in there too. But
most likely,
maybe we'll find I'll find that and post it up. It was pretty interesting to watch. But I look forward to what's next for this guy. I think I doubted it a little bit prior to seeing this, but after seeing this, I think it's in the cards for him. I mean, eventually it'll happen probably, as far as him making a movie that really kind of clicks.
Agreed.
I agree.
This movie did make me think of a good pitch.
Uh-oh. You got a pitch, bitch?
I got some pitches, bitches.
Does it involve necrophilia?
Oh, it definitely involves necrophilia. Why? I don't know why.
Then let's hear it.
Why wouldn't it?
All right, go ahead.
I don't want to go that far afield. It's really dumb. I mean, it's not like I don't really think it out that much. But it was around the time that he took the dead woman, back to his house, that I started thinking, this would be amazing if it turned into a romantic comedy now. Like, because it's already been so dark, like this guy is horrible. There's nothing but spit and snot and shit coming out of him, and like everything's just uncomfortable and disgusting. But then I thought, well, what if suddenly some lady walks in the door, some society woman, she doesn't see the corpse, of course, and she basically puts a proposal to him, kind of like a My Fair Lady thing, where it's like, I'm going to turn you into a society guy, and then you can win back your property. And he's like, well, all right. But then a part of that is that he has to pretend to be in love with this society girl, and he starts to feel conflicted feelings about his dead girl who's back at the place rotting away. And so, so the whole thing is like, you just have no idea if you're supposed to laugh at any of this. That would be the ideal tone, is people watching it like, this. Is this a comedy? This can't possibly be funny.
It's like a Weekend at Ballard's, I guess you would.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, and of course, the dead girl wins out in the end. Like, he goes back to her, and the simple ways of loving a dead girl. And everyone in the audience is like, why the fuck did I pay for this?
Because she's never been anything but faithful.
Yeah.
Exactly. How else can you show your love to a necrophiliac? You know what I mean?
A good point. Craig, I like your pitch.
Thank
I would
you.
watch that.
Thank you.
Greg,
for the validation.
Would never watch that show.
That you shouldn't. No one should.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
Bob, thanks so much.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing what else you do, as I'm sure there will be more to come.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, guys.
You can go visit our website, neverheardpodcast.com, and find links to all our various guises on the interwebs. And come say hello.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, thanks.